We're going to move on to our fourth and final image. This is going to be a lot of fun. We've got an album here, and I'm going to be combining 3 or 4 different images together for this album. We've got a few textures and then a portrait of our subject, and then we're gonna give it like a album cover name. I don't know. Something. I'll say one short word, and then it'll wind up being California Surfer again. That was.
Creativity was stifled.
So I want everyone to start thinking now. It's got to be a cool name. It's gonna wind up being on this photo. So you can be like Little Raucous Riding Hood, or that's it. Now, all right. So let's talk. We're gonna be combining these together, and just a couple ideas in the background, because watching me do this with pre-chosen textures and things like that, that's one thing, and I hope you have fun with that. But I'd also like to help you guys when it's time for you to pick your own textures and you're at your house or whatever, and you're like, I don't know, what would combine and what would look cool and things like that. Generally what I'm searching for here are things with really interesting like textures that are going to wind up showing on my image. And then a good difference between light and dark, like we've done previously. So this is a good area because we do have this really light area as well as the blue. Also keep in mind what we did earlier with the hue, saturation, changing that color whenever we wanted to. So it wasn't, if this is blue and you're like, man, my image is red, I need something red. It's very, very easy to change this blue to red if you wanted to. So don't let things like that color, keep you from using a texture that you may happen to like. And then finally, play around. If I'm thinking, I maybe want 1 or 2 textures to wind up on my final image, I'll try like 15 or 20. I'll try a bunch of them, because sometimes you get something and you think it's going to be great and it just looks horrible. It just doesn't work. And then sometimes things surprise you. So be open for those surprises and try out a lot of different things. Those would be my suggestions. All right, so we're going to close these down, and then this one's kind of cool. I think it just kind of matches what we got going on there. All right, so we're going to bring these together and basically just make this a little bit more of a kind of a grungy type image. But it's a cool image to start with. Like we're starting with a cool photo, and that helps, right? Like, it's like baking a pizza. You want all of your ingredients to be quality. All right, so first thing I'd like to do, we're just going to scale this a little bit larger, and then, we're not getting super technical with this. This is like artsy, my mom calls it artsy fartsy. This is like, this is artsy fartsy. So have fun with it, flip through your blending modes. We're gonna do that right now. So I'm gonna hit V for my move tool, Shift, and I'm gonna hit the plus and minus. And I'm interested in seeing how this combines. Like, sometimes you'll get something like that, and that's way too much. It doesn't look great, but sometimes you like something about it. So you can always change these things too. If I wanted to just lower the opacity, I can keep the same, I can keep the same artsy farsiness, yeah. You can lower the opacity. You can apply like a levels adjustment layer to these as well. So keep in mind that you don't have to use them just as they are by default. This hard light, that looks cool. That looks really cool because we have the reds and the yellows are mixing together to create that really nice orange. I'm a huge fan of color, like mixing of colors and playing. In this case, we want to stick with a mostly warm color palette. So we're going to be using reds and yellows and oranges, and that's going to give us a nice warm feeling. So I like that, but it's on top of her face. So we're just going to rotate it around or flip it. So let's try flipping this. I'm going to hit Control-Command-T, right-click, and go to Flip Vertical. And then, you know what? I'm going to flip that horizontally as well. And we're just going to scale this a little bit larger there. All right. That looks cool. Now, hard light is pretty good, but remember, these are all in the same category. So if I like hard light, there's a decent chance I might like overlay too. So I want to see what overlay looks like. Not that great. Soft light. OK. So linear light looks pretty good too. That looks kind of cool. Yeah, I like that one too. Didn't I say earlier that I only use pin light like once ever? All right, well, it's working. So, you know, don't write something off just because you barely ever use it. So I like this, and I think you guys too do too. There's one thing that I think could be improved, and that's it's too light in this area. That red is not allowing me to see enough detail of my subject. So what I'm going to do is I want to bring this red and I want to make it darker. I want to make it black, which is going to allow me to see more detail of my subject. So not hard to do. We're going to use a levels adjustment layer. So let's go to levels. What's up?
Add black.
Yep, we can add black, or we can take the midtones and make them darker or lighter, or yep, I can add black with the levels. I also want to clip this because I only want this to be visible on the texture. So right now I'm changing just the texture. I don't need to change my background image. So clipping this, right click, go to create a clipping mask. There we go. And I can bring my black point up, which is going to add black. But I like this more than a layer mask because I'm not just, if we had a layer mask here instead, right, which I think is what a lot of people would do, and there's nothing wrong, you know, everyone's got different strategies. But if I just layer mask this away, the texture goes away, and you're always left with this like just blur from no texture to texture, and that it doesn't look as refined to me as, you know, making it a little bit darker, because then you still get the texture, but you don't get the part of the texture you don't like. Not only that, but I've got a levels adjustment layer on this layer now, and the levels adjustment layer, it has a layer mask as well. So if I want this to be visible just at the top and I want to keep the bottom, I can do that. I can have just the levels blending mode visible at the top, and I could bring it back on the bottom to be a little bit more visible there. All right, and then we can click on the texture as a whole, and I can paint this away from just areas like her face. All right, there we go. We may wind up putting a little bit of texture on her face, but generally, if I can get away with it, I generally like to avoid too much texture on people's faces, even when you're doing images like this, because it can kind of, I don't know, it usually looks like they have skin problems more than anything else. You know, it's like, okay, that does not look as good. But that looks good. I like that. What do you guys think? It's already pretty cool, right? And it took almost no time. And I'm also thinking, trying to go through in my head, I'm like, okay, album cover, I need a place for text right here. That's a good place for text. Yeah, we got a question.
Is there a way to put a little bit more of that texture back in the red? Because I think when you took it out, when you did your slider,
yes,
it slid a little bit too much of the texture out of the red around her face.
Yeah, how's that?
So it gave it this orange neon-y glowy thing.
Yes, you can definitely change that at any point. And the great thing about using these layer blend modes, I'm gonna go a little bit more, so she's got a little bit more separation between the background. The great thing about using your adjustment layers and clipping masks is if I save this as a PSD, I've got access to these layers. So I could deliver this to the client, and the client can say, you know what, can we bring that red up in the background, or can we take that down? I don't have to go in my original JPEG and try to refix it. I just go into my levels adjustment layer, just change this a little bit, and we're good to go. So it's a really quick, non-destructive way of editing. Because this looks, I mean, that looks like it's been destroyed, right? But it's not. It's a very, very simple edit. All right, let's bring this guy into Command or Control T to size it up just a little bit. And as I look through this, I'm thinking to myself, all right, I need differences between light and dark. I'm always looking at light and dark because that's going to create those really nice natural transitions, because I don't want to just grab the soft round brush and fuzzy it out. So this area here is dark and this area is light. So if I wanted just this like dark texture stuff to show up over top of my image, I could have that. Or if I wanted just the light. So let's see what that looks like. So for the light stuff, we would want to change the blending mode to lighten or screen. Now in this case, because so much of this image actually is light, you can use a levels adjustment layer to change it, just like we did. So let's try that. I'm going to duplicate this layer. This one is still set to screen. Notice I'm duplicating. anytime I'm gonna apply a levels adjustment layer or make a big change, I'm gonna duplicate that layer. That's just gonna make sure I've got another copy. So now we're gonna hit Controller Command L. Remember, we're on a screen blending mode, which will lighten things. Right now, I've got this blue is lightening things, which I don't want. I just want the white to be there. So I'm going to take my dark point, and I'm going to make it darker, which basically makes the blue darker, which basically makes the blue disappear. Does that make sense? It's kind of a lot of mental steps. But there we go. Now we can just have the white visible. Isn't that cool? And, you know, put this wherever you want. It can go as multiple layers. I can do this multiple different times. I can, you know, bring that in as like, you know, maybe we'll put text over top of that. This time, instead of screen, I'm going to go up to multiply. Okay? And now I'm going to hit Controller Command L for our levels, and I'm going to take my white point and I'm going to bring that up. So my multiply, again, it's going to feather off nicely, and it's only going to be visible in the areas that I want it to be visible. All right, and you can lower your opacity and things like that, which this is adding a little bit of green into the image. It's going to be a taste and a preference thing. I liked the simplicity of keeping it in that color scale. If you like the green, you can obviously stick with green. If not, we said earlier that it's always easy to change colors. Just hit Controller Command U, which is going to bring up hue saturation. And now I'm able to change that. I can change that green into a red very quickly. So not a problem at all. If you like everything about something except a color, don't give up on it, because that color is super easy to change. All right, and I might put this just at the very top. So let's put a black layer mask on there, and then I'm going to paint white at the very top here to kind of give it a little bit of like a textured vignette sort of thing. And I'm using my brush tool now to paint this in for time's sake, but if you really wanted a great selection, I'd recommend taking care of that edge with the pen tool, which I love the pen tool, so of course I'm going to say that. Everyone's like, I'll stick with the brush tool. There we go. And if you wanted any of this visible on the bottom as well, you could definitely have that be visible. That's what's nice about having your client in the room with you. You're like, you waste no time. Get that out of there. All right, and then we have one more layer. And keep in mind, I've got these together here as options. We don't have to use these. We're not stuck with any of these things. These are just options for us. When I was doing the mock-up for this, I used this layer over top of her hood. I'm not sure I'm going to like it. I'm not sure if you guys are going to like it, but we will have some more options. All right, so again, we're just flipping through blending modes, and you know, if this were like a Lady Gaga album or something, it would be, you know, this kind of look would be a little bit more appropriate, because it is like that, like edgy, like, whoa, what happened? But what's that? Yeah, it got Gaga. So we're gonna try. Hard light looks pretty good. Let's just bring our light source just up a little bit more. There we go. Okay, and we can lower the opacity here. And then this layer, I can choose to have be visible in certain areas of the photo. We'll see if we like this. Let me play around for like 2 minutes, and then you guys can tell me, you know, if you like it, or if not, we can just get rid of it, because it's no big deal either way. But what I was kind of thinking is, if some of those textures were visible on the hood, but they followed the actual, you know, they followed the direction of the hood, I was thinking that could be kind of cool there. So you have some, you know, kind of coming up, some kind of coming down like that. So it's all this is playing. So that's, you know, when I'm back in Chicago and I'm coming up with episodes to teach on Flurn.com, and I'm working on new images and things like this. This is a lot of what I do. And you know, the manager of my company doesn't fully understand. Sometimes it's like, I was working, I promise. I dicked around in Photoshop for like an hour and a half, you know. Sometimes this is just what you have to do. It's like, you really just get in there and play because, again, a decent portion of the time, you're not going to really love the end result, but some of the time you're going to stumble upon something you really like, and that makes the whole process worth it. So, yeah, I can't stress that enough. Just have some fun and play with Photoshop. All right. Cool. What do you guys think about that texture so far? Is that worth going, or? Yeah, we got kind of meh. Some people are yeses, some people are nos. Okay, well, let's group them together. We'll keep them on there for now. We can always decide later to turn that off if we'd like to do so. Okay, we're going to group these together. We're going to go ahead and name this, and then we're going to take some questions. So if you guys want to start prepping some questions. There we go. So this is going to be our texture group. Texture, all right. And then we have our hood. All right, very cool. Let's play with some text. You guys been thinking about a name for this? Artsy fartsy. What was the other? Rockin' Robin. R-O-C-K.
I-N apostrophe.
I-N. Oh, Rockin' Robin. You know what? Now we're. Yeah. Now we're getting there. Rockin' Robin. All right. I want to do one. Can I get one more suggestion for a name? Meditate? Just meditate?
It looks like a monk to me.
She does look. When I was working on this, I put alchemist because I thought she looked like an alchemist. So maybe, yeah, let's do. You guys want to do alchemist? Can we do alchemist monk? All right, we're doing alchemist, and then you know what? On a different layer, I'm gonna do monk. All right, let's start off with alchemist monk. This will be fun. So if you have something like this, you want to make look, you want to make look fancy and look like you know what you're doing in graphic design, which I do not, by the way, for the record. One of my best friends is an amazing graphic designer, and every time I look at his work, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. Good to know. keeps you in line. All right. So let's make this a little bit larger here. That's maybe too large. One big tip here, a lot of people will come into the type tool and they'll see a bounding box there, and they'll use their move tool, and you can stretch it around and you can make it larger and smaller. I would actually recommend, for the most part, staying away from using just your transform tool to make things larger and smaller. The reason being, if I were to make this really small and then try to adjust like the spacing between my letters, it's based on the original size. So you really want to try to stick with this guy over here for keeping your image, for keeping your sizing. Now, a lot of the time, I'll get it pretty close, and then I'll just adjust it a little bit. But I find if you're making large adjustments, especially with size, stick to this. So let's go ahead and center this. I'm going to hit Command or Control A, which selects everything in my image. And now, this is a great tip for you guys, anyone who needs to align things like text or type in the images. Command or Control A selects everything in my image. And then we're going to click on our Move tool, which will bring up my alignment controls. OK, so now, because everything is selected, it's going to align this text for my whole image. So I can click on the top, and it'll put it right on the top. I can click on the middle here, and it'll go in the middle. I can click on the middle vertically, and it'll go in the middle. I can put it on the bottom. So any of these areas that I need, so I don't have to kind of guess around as to where the middle would be. If I want it in the exact middle, just click on that, and we're good to go. Or you can just move it down. If you hold the Shift key down, it'll keep it from moving left or the right or top or the bottom. It'll go just in the direction that you pull it. All right, that's cool. All right, are we calling this Monk Alchemist or Alchemist Monk? Alchemist Monk. All right, let's bring that a little bit thinner, and then bring that. I like playing around with type, especially when I can like make it connect in weird ways, and like, oh, the K goes right into the T. I think it's fun. All right, So Alchemist Monk, there we go. It's hard to figure out where that's going to go. Okay, I can't see it so well, so we'll change from thin. Let's try light, regular. That's starting to look cool. All right, you know what? I think we could even pump it up a little bit. All right. Cool. Do we like that, or I don't know? I think I maybe just liked it just Alchemist. What do you guys think? It's more simple. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe Monk is the name of the album.
Yeah.
And Alchemist is the band.
Yeah, it's the name of the album. So that can go somewhere else. That could go, you know, up here. All right. Definitely not. All right. Now the cool thing about this, and we said earlier that you know, using things like our clipping mask is so nice, and especially when you're working with text, clipping masks can be a lot of fun. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to see if I can make this Alchemist. If I can make the textures of my original image go right over top of that type, I think it might be really cool. So we're just going to give it a shot. It won't take too long. We'll see how it goes. So we're going to make this invisible. I'm going to make a new layer, and then I'm going to hit Shift-Option-Command-E, which is our stamp visible layer. It makes a copy of everything you see. Okay? So let's put that over top of our Alchemist type. And now I'm going to clip it. I'm going to right-click, and I'll go to Create Clipping Mask. So now we've got our image over top of the Alchemist type. And instead of just black, I've like instantly got a really cool texture that fits with the actual image, because it is. It's the image itself. And you know, getting down here, that's I think getting a little bit too much detail. But right around there, I like that. What do you guys think? That's pretty cool, right? It might benefit from being like a little bit darker here towards the edges. So let's just grab a curves adjustment layer, Option-Command-G to clip that. And we're going to click here and just drag it down just a little bit. Hit Command-I on that layer mask, and then we're going to paint white in just a couple areas so we can really see it. All right, and just like everything else, this is all very, very changeable. If I want to move my type, I can move this at any point in time. I liked it down there a little bit better. We can do any of this stuff, and you know what? I do want to do one more thing. Let's try making another stamp visible layer over top of this. And I want to see if I can bring a little bit of this texture on over top of the type again. I don't know if it's going to work, but I think it's worth a try. So let's try double-clicking here, because this is my stamp visible layer, remember, which is just like a copy of everything we see. And I want to make the dark areas disappear, just so I can maybe get some like scratches. It already has scratches, but if it could blend right in, like especially with that T, that'd be cool. So let's double-click here. I'm going to hold the Alt or the Option key and click on this layer this time, because I want to choose this layer to make this layer invisible where it's darker and just visible where it's lighter. And get like, hopefully something that looks kind of like gold flakes right on top of the, yeah, right on top of there. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And you know what? Because of blend if, it's image wide, right? Like I can't just blend if this part of the image. So if, for instance, I really like where these sliders are at, you know, for half of the image, like I like where it is over here, but it's too much over there, I can just duplicate this layer and I can have two different versions. I can have one version, let's do that here. One version that's layer masked to only be visible there, okay? And then another version that I'm going to have only visible on the left side, but this time we're going to just adjust this a little bit more so it's a little bit less visible on that side. All right, so let's paint black on that layer mask and then paint white just over there. All right, very cool. So these layers now, they bring the actual texture, which I think is nice because you can see the scratch continue over top of the T and you know, go right through that C there. Gives a nice little added detail that I think that, yeah, I kind of like that. All right, so we'll call this Alchemist. Did I spell Alchemist right, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, I'm like, I just realized I don't know how to spell that word. Let's hope that's right. And I think that looks great. What do you? Let's give it a round of applause. I think that image looks great. Good job, guys. All right.
I like it. We got a couple closing questions here, and then we'll kind of finish up for the segment. First of all, JDM Forgiven and 3 other people say, I would like to know how to flip through blend modes like you did. You've shown it a couple times, but maybe one more time to show people how to really quickly scan through and see the effects.
Yep, and I'll just give you one more example of a time when I actually may do that. Sometimes I'll fill an entire layer with a color, oftentimes a very random color, just to see what it'll do. In this case, we got like a nice teal. So the first thing you want to do is hit V for your move tool. That's important because if you're on your brush tool, it'll actually flip through the blending modes of your brush, which we don't want. Unless you do want that, then that's how you do that. So V for the move tool, then hold down the Shift key, and then hit plus and minus on your keyboard. And in this case, it's going to blend this color in with the rest of my image. And probably look horrible for the most part, but you will get some interesting things like that. There we go. That's a hue, saturation, color. We'll just color the whole thing. So, good question. Yep.
Cool, cool, cool. And then another really quick one, Salua and a couple other people want to know, how did you make a copy of everything you see?
Okay, good question. That is a stamped visible layer, which you can get to by holding Shift, Option, Command, and hitting E. You can also go to Image, and then down to Apply Image. And you want to choose Merged, Channel RGB, Blending Mode can be Multiply, or it can be Normal. And then hit OK, and that does the exact same thing.
Cool, super simple.
Yeah.
And Jessica Lintz and 2 other people, maybe final question, unless there's anything in the room, says, do you ever worry about scaling textures too much in the sense of it damaging the quality of the image, or is that not really an issue?
Great question. I would say, as with images, scale textures as little as you possibly can. I found that for the most part, you can get away with scaling textures more than you can scale an image, because if you do lose a little bit of the detail, it usually won't affect the final image. We'll just zoom in here to about 100%, and you can see it has been scaled. It doesn't have the super fine edges. Maybe I would like that, but as a whole, it doesn't degrade the image. And yeah, so I would say find the textures at the highest possible quality you can. If you can't find any online that are to your standard, you can photograph your own. They're very easy. Like a picture of this table would make a great texture over top of an image. So yeah, good question.
Great. Anything in the room? One in the middle? Go ahead.
In all this beautiful, exploration, I'm just curious in your workflow, do you use stamp visible layers or do you use layer comps to really keep track of where you're going? I noticed that, if you do a stamp visible, then you've got that hierarchy, but layer comps, I'm just wondering which makes more sense to you?
Yeah, really good question. Okay, so if I'm trying out different variations, if I'm saying like, okay, this option might be a good option, something else might be an option, I'll do something a little different. Let's say I wanted to take this on a little bit of a different road, maybe try different texture type treatment and things like that. I will actually just hold down Shift and click on all my layers and right click, and I'll just go to duplicate layers onto a new document. And I just start playing around on this new document. And that way I can do whatever I want on this new document, and I don't have to worry about saving this one where it is and going back to the place and everything like that. I'll just save this as Alchemist 1, and then this can be Alchemist 2. And very, very simple to do, and I'll have multiple copies. Not only that, but if I'm going to be resizing something dramatically, I learned this lesson the hard way, by the way. I finished like an image, and it was like the full 20 megapixel out of the camera, and I was like, okay, it's done, it's awesome. I saved the PSD out, and then I needed to save a version for the web, so I resized it down to like 800 pixels wide, and then I saved it, and then I closed it, and it was like done. It was it's stuck at 800 pixels wide, and I had to redo the Photoshop for the original. So on that same idea, if I am going to be resizing something that's important, most of the time I'll do a stamp visible, I'll just duplicate that to an entirely new document, and then I'll just resize that new document. So I know for 100%, 100% of the time that this is going to be, this is the small version and this is my original. So as with creating a lot of layers can be very helpful, sometimes creating a lot of documents can be helpful too. Yeah?
Where do you find most of your textures that are like high enough resolution and good quality?
Yeah, good question. I've actually photographed a lot of textures. I don't want to seem like too self-promoting, but we have a lot of texture packs available on Flurn.com that are all 21 or more megapixels. In this class, I used Fotolia.com. They're a stock image website. Adobe just bought them as well, so I think they're going to be rolling out a ton of support here coming relatively soon. And I like photographing textures. It's a good time to just grab your camera, go on like a walk around the city or wherever you go. And, I feel like personally, when I pick up my camera, a lot of the time I have pressure. I gotta like create this great portrait and I gotta be serious about it and I gotta do something of note. But going around and just like having the goal of capturing textures is a lot of fun because it gets you out of the house and you can go like, you can photograph a brick wall and it's good, like that's what you wanted to do. Like it's not a stupid picture of a brick wall anymore. It's like, yes, I'm gonna use this. Like it's a good thing.
So everyone in this room, make sure that before you leave, you get a picture of that wall right there that's behind Aaron.
That would actually be,
because it's an amazing texture. It
yes,
really is.
It really is. Yeah, that would be, and get some far away. Take some pictures far away where you can see the whole thing, and then get up close and take some up close because on this Alchemist image, any one of those squares would have made this image look cool. So yeah, get out there, and Chicago is great because everything is like, rusting to pieces and falling apart. So everything looks great for textures in Chicago. But yeah, little things like this. The carpet. I took a picture of my granite countertop one time, which is very dark. It's a very dark granite countertop, and it has little like light flecks in it. And when the light hits it, it's cool. I took a picture of that. It was very dark with little light flecks, and I turned it into a night sky because they look like stars. So you never know.